Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about a company that looked like the ultimate success story. A celebrated AI startup, a huge IPO, everyone thought they were the real deal. But there was a tiny problem. It was all a lie. A massive, multi-billion yen lie.
On the surface, this was the dream. Alt Inc. goes public on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, hailed as a leader in AI. But behind that curtain, the success that everyone was celebrating, it was just an illusion built on a foundation of pure fraud.
So, just how big was this illusion? This number here is really the heart of it all. 11.9 billion yen. That's how much revenue they just made up. To put that in perspective for you, that's around 80 million US dollars that simply never existed.
And when you look at the data from the investigation, it's just staggering. At their peak, in 2022 and 2023, more than 91% of their sales were completely fake. Think about that. They weren't just fudging the numbers a little bit. The fraud was their business model.
This just raises two huge questions, right? First, how on earth do you even pull something like this off? And second, maybe the bigger question is, why? What drives a company's leaders to build their entire world on a lie?
Well, to get to that why, we've got to understand the world that Alt Inc. was born into. It's the pressure cooker environment of the modern startup scene.
Alt Inc.'s journey was straight out of the startup playbook. They founded in 2014, and pretty soon they were raising tons of venture capital, over 6.9 billion yen. But with every new investment, especially after launching their big product, the pressure just mounted. The demand wasn't just for growth, it was for hyper-growth. And it was all pushing toward that one finish line, a huge IPO.
And this is the fundamental conflict for so many startups. The dream is to disrupt an industry, to change the world. But the reality is, you're burning through cash, and you have investors breathing down your neck, demanding results right now. For Alt Inc., that pressure to create that perfect hockey stick growth curve became an obsession. And we don't even have to guess about their motives. The official investigation report says it plain as day. The entire company culture, from the very top, was singularly focused on pumping up sales, no matter what it took to get to that IPO.
So, all that intense pressure needed an outlet, and they channeled it into building this really sophisticated machine designed for one purpose, to fake revenue. So how did they do it?
Okay, this diagram shows you the whole scheme. Now, it looks complicated, and that was on purpose. It was supposed to confuse anyone looking too closely. But really, at its core, it was just a simple fraudulent loop. Let's break it down.
It worked in 4 basic steps. 1, Alt Inc. would pay a bunch of money to partner companies for fake services like advertising. 2, those companies would secretly funnel the cash to another group of shell companies called super partners. 3, the super partners would then use that exact same money to buy products from Alt Inc. And 4, Alt Inc. would book its own money coming back to them as new revenue. It's basically paying yourself and calling it a salary.
And there's a name for this. It's a textbook circular transaction. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book for accounting fraud. And get this, they managed this whole complex scheme using a shared Google spreadsheet. A spreadsheet. It was their real-time playbook for committing fraud.
A scheme this bold, this big, it can't last forever. Sooner or later, a house of cards like this has to come down. So what finally made it all collapse?
Well, the first red flags actually popped up pretty early. The company's very first auditor started noticing things that just felt off. They saw that the ad agencies getting paid were connected to the customers buying the product. They saw sales and expenses being logged for the exact same amounts. And the real kicker? They couldn't find any proof that any actual services were ever delivered. They were ringing the alarm bell loud and clear.
So what did Alt Inc. do? Did they say, "Oops, you caught us"? Nope. They fired the auditor. Then they made the scheme even more complicated to hide it better. This tells you everything you need to know about their intent. This wasn't a mistake they were trying to fix. They were trying to perfect the crime.
But you can't outrun regulators forever. Eventually, Japan's version of the SEC launched its own investigation. That forced the company to bring in an independent third-party committee. The game was over.
So once the investigators peeled back all the layers of deception, what was actually left? What was real inside this celebrated AI company?
Well, this comparison is just wow. In 2024, Alt Inc. was telling the world it had almost 29,000 paid accounts. The investigation found the real number was just over 2,200. Almost 92% of their customers were ghosts. They just didn't exist.
The final report was absolutely brutal. It boiled the scandal down to 3 core things: a complete lack of integrity from the people at the top, governance and internal controls that were basically non-existent, and a consistent pattern of deliberate deception. It was a total failure of corporate ethics.
You know, the Alt Inc. story is more than just about one company's spectacular flameout. It's a real cautionary tale for any industry where the pressure for hyper-growth is so intense that it can blur the line between ambition and fraud. And it leaves us with a pretty sobering question. In this frantic race to build the next big thing, how many other empires are just illusions,